contemporary art in Chicago. And he laid in that position under a piece of plexiglass. It ended up being for 45 hours straight. And the conditions of the performance was that it would only end when somebody, what do you think? Interfered. Thank you. See how I planted that word in your head? When somebody interfered. So yeah, Antonio could have been maybe breaking the glass. He didn't put really any definition on what the interference was, just that somebody had to do something. So what ended up happening was that a museum staff person ended up giving him a pitcher of water, putting it right by his head, and so that, that was a 45 or 45. Did I say 45 minutes or 45 hours?
Hours.
Okay, good. 45 hours, because that's much more impressive. 45 hours, and that ended the piece. So then he got up and he smashed the clock and walked out of the museum. But the ideas behind this are, when you think about it, do you think, he's quoted as saying, I was wondering if they were going to sit there and let me die, right? Everybody, look at the people. They're removed. They're kind of in the more traditional sense of, I'm going to be the audience looking at this art piece and just observing it. I'm not going to do anything, right? There's kind of a tension there. Does the audience have a moral obligation to help Chris Burden, who's just laying there? I don't know. It's a performance piece. Should they engage? Should they not? So again, challenging the traditional view of what art is.
I feel like there's a loophole, and I don't want to say plot hole, but in most museums, you're not supposed to touch the art.
Right, but was one of his big ideas, to challenge that, right? You're not supposed to do that in the traditional notion of art. So that's probably what a lot of these people had in their heads about art. And so kind of what's cool about this piece is, somebody could make the argument that the art behind it was the idea of that challenge. All right, this one's called Transfixed. Chris Burden nailed himself to a Volkswagen Bug, literally transfixed to the Bug, and the garage door opened. They rolled it out of the garage to an audience, and they revved the engine to simulate screaming in pain. So,
you were right.
it's pretty wild, right? So, related to what we just saw in that first one, that the audience is definitely taken out of their comfort zone, right? The idea is that they he kind of wanted to, so he plays this idea of transfixation. So, do you guys know what it means to be transfixed? What does it mean? Captivated, right? So that he's kind of playing with the title and the word, but that was his major goal. And back to the idea of the chalk, right? We talked about physical engagement versus, something like this being more transfixed in either, terror, amazement, or awe. So those are all types of engagement. But with Chris Burden, he really wants us to get beyond this state of standing there kind of going, whoa, but he wants us to get beyond that and take action, right? So being influenced by something, but then using whatever happened or that feeling to then affect change or act on it. Okay, his most famous one is this one called Shoot. Who wants to read his quote up there on the left? Not this is a video, but we're going to watch it in a second, but who wants to read the quote for me? Out loud. Yes, Anthony, go ahead. This is, Chris Burden is quoted as saying this.
I had an
An intuitive
sense that being shot is as American as apple pie. We see people being shot on TV, we read about it in the newspaper. Everybody has wondered what it is like, so I did it.
You guys agree with that? Pretty heavy statement, right?
He wanted to be shot. Where?
So do you so again, I want to put put this in context,
Did he hate himself?
a little bit crazy, or a genius, right? I don't know.
No, like, not being sure he's
So wait a second. What? Remember, this was happening during the Vietnam War, and if you probably remember from your history class, that was a time when news journalism, they were covering the war, and people were seeing it on the nightly news for the first time with how horrible all this stuff was. I don't know how often you all watch the news yourselves, but I feel like we're always hearing about somebody getting shot in Aleppo or in the city, right? So, do you think that even though this statement was made during the 70s, do you think that it's still current or still relevant today?
It's like even more relevant now.
More relevant? Okay.
Always
Let's watch what he did.
That leads to me wanting to